play you're about to see is based on the trial of a murder case and treats the facts of violent death as frankly as they were treated in the original court. Details of the trial have been condensed from contemporary sources, but scenes outside the courtroom are a mixture of fact and conjecture. 1923. On the night of the 9th of July, the unnaturally hot weather broke in a sensational thunderstorm. About 2:30 in the morning, in a corridor of the Savoy Hotel, 3 pistol shots were fired. The woman who fired them made no attempt to conceal what she'd done. "I've shot my husband," she told the police. She was French, Marguerite Fahmy. The trial lasted 6 days. Madame Fahmy spoke no English, so every question and every answer had to be translated. You, however, will hear her speaking English. We've none of us got 6 days to spare. Madame Fahmy had wealthy friends and had engaged the most famous defense lawyer of the day, Sir Edward Marshall Hall. The crowds who waited all night for the opening of the trial were waiting for him as much as for her. They had to wait quite a time. You always had to wait for Marshall.
Where is he? It's 20 past.
I don't know. Taking his time, as usual, I suppose.
He promised to be here at the start.
Are the defence ready to proceed, Sir Henry?
If your lordship would allow us a moment or two longer. Where is Sir Edward?
I'm afraid I don't know, Sir Henry. If I may add with
I
respect.
really don't think we can wait any longer.
Go and tell him we're starting.
Where is he? Rigby starting.
Ah, Mr. Oliver, I was looking for you. Sir Edward's just coming.
Where is he?
In the robing room.
She'll be tried and hanged, and he'll still be brushing his hair.
We don't have to be there for the preliminaries. Now, if you'll just take charge of these, sir. Sir Edward takes a white pill first, then 2 of the yellow ones, but not more often than once in every hour. Our legs are giving us a lot of trouble today.
I didn't come to the bar to be a bloody nanny.
The prisoner stands indicted that on the 10th day of July, 1923, she murdered Ali Fahmy Bey. To this indictment, she has pleaded not guilty, and you are charged to say, having first heard the evidence, whether she is guilty or not.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
My lord, members of the jury, in this case, I appear on behalf of the Crown. My learned friends, Sir Edward Marshall Hall, Sir Henry Curtis Bennet, and Mr. Roland Oliver represent the prisoner. The prisoner, Marguerite Fahmy, was married to Prince Fahmy, to the deceased, at a civil ceremony in December 1922, just 9 months ago. This civil ceremony took place in Cairo and was followed 2 months later by a religious ceremony according to the Mohammedan faith to which the prisoner had been converted. The couple had met in Paris in May of last year and had subsequently lived together in Deauville and Biarritz. In July of this year, they came to London and occupied a suite at the Savoy Hotel. On July the 9th, it appears, there was a quarrel between them. They retired to their suite shortly after midnight, and at about 2:30 in the morning of July the 10th, a night porter of the hotel was carrying some luggage along a corridor of the 4th floor.
Came running out into the corridor and he said, "Look what she's done to me." There was a wee red mark just underneath his eye.
Nothing serious, though.
No.
And what happened then?
Then she came running out after him.
Mr. Beattie, will you describe to the court exactly how the prisoner was dressed at that time?
She was all in white.
Nightdress.
No. It was an evening gown. It had decorations on it.
And Prince Fahmy?
Well, he was in some sort of pyjamas.
Mr. Beattie, will you describe the prisoner's manner at that time?
Excited. They were both very excited. Well, they're foreigners, you see.
You concluded that they were behaving as foreigners are apt to behave, but that no real harm had been done.
Aye.
So you continued on your way. What happened next?
Well, about 2 minutes later, I heard 3 shots from back the way I'd come.
Now, was there a pause between the shots, an interval?
No, they were right together. Bang, bang, bang.
And then?
I ran back along the corridor.
And what did you find?
I found Prince Fahmy lying on the ground, motionless, with blood coming out of his neck.
And the prisoner, was she there?
Aye.
Was she carrying anything?
She had a small pistol in her right hand. Just as I arrived, she threw it down on the ground. Then she went and knelt beside her husband. I then observed 3 cartridges lying on the floor at her husband's feet.
Did she say anything?
She said something in French.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? What have I done? This is what she said to me. What will you do to me? And I said to her, Madame, what is this terrible thing you have done?
Mr. Mariani, when you arrived on the scene, where exactly was the prince's body?
No, it is there, on the floor. She was still on her knees. She was lost. She didn't understand what had happened.
Thank you. And she said?
She said, Monsieur, I've been married for 6 months, and the torture has been terrible. I have suffered terribly.
Thank you. And that was all she said?
No. She said that she and her husband had quarreled about the divorce.
About a divorce?
Yes.
This is a new piece of evidence, isn't it, Mr. Clark?
It would seem so, my lord.
Do you have any more questions?
No, my lord.
That was careless of Percy. An unnecessary question.
Yes, so listen to us all, not to get carried away.
Mr. Mariani, on the morning after the tragedy, you gave evidence at the magistrate's court at Bow Street.
Yes.
You did not think it fit to mention then that Madame Fahmy had told you that she and her husband had quarrelled about a divorce. Did you not think it a point of importance? Do you see now that it is a point of importance?
Yes.
Then why didn't you mention it before? Pardon? Well?
I was not asked. I answered questions only.
I see. Thank you.
You're going to hang her?
Nonsense.
That poor little devil meant no harm. Why did you have to go and treat him like that?
The divorce is central, Henry. It was on her mind. She was in a trap, helpless, like a little animal turning this way and that.
Marshal, listen. Ill treatment to the right degree, of course, is useful to our case. That can add up to provocation. And with any luck, the jury will make it manslaughter. But if you keep on harping about this divorce, it'll only prove motive. And that makes it murder.
All right.
No more about the divorce.
All right.
Good. Now, would you like to hear my opinion on another question?
Not really, Henry.
It's about the secretary, Prince Fahmy's private secretary, that is. Now, Percy will be calling him after lunch. Now, go easy.
Said Anani.
Said.
Anani. Slimy toad, bloody
Marshal,
pander.
don't get carried away. If you attack that man's character, Percy will attack hers, and then we're sunk. She's no violet, as you know damn well.
The white pill first, Sir Edward, then the 2 yellow ones.
She didn't mean to kill him. I'm certain of it. She was so unhappy. And that man, Mr. Said
Marshal,
Anani,
I tell
just
you
stood there and
can't
watched her suffer.
afford to attack him. Roland, you sit beside him, and Marshal, when you feel Roland tugging at your gown, you'll know you've gone too far.
The first you heard of the tragedy was a telephone call from Madame Fahmy from the accused at about 10 minutes to 3 in the morning.
That is correct. She said, I have shot Ali. I don't know how I did it. Please come at once.
I have shot Ali. I don't know how I did it. Were you aware at the time that the accused possessed a pistol?
Oh, yes. She generally carried it with her in her handbag.
Why?
To protect her jewellery. The prince had given her a great deal of very valuable jewellery.
Yes, Mr. Anani, you said at the inquest that Prince Fahmy had an income of £40,000 sterling per annum. Is that correct?
In a normal year, yes.
A normal year?
2 years ago, when the price of cotton rose, he had £140,000.
Mr. Anani, would you say that the prisoner and the late Prince Fahmy were a happy couple?
No, they were not well suited to each other in temperament. The prince preferred a quiet life. Madame enjoyed parties, soirées. Dancing.
Thank you. The light, the shadow of the light, and the shadow of the shadow of the light. The Cairo Weekly, Kachkul, February 12th, last year. Now, here is a cartoon showing 3 profiles set against each other. Show it to the witness. Have you seen this cartoon before?
Yes.
Who are these men?
Prince Fahmy, myself, and my own private secretary.
And what do you suppose is the message of the cartoon?
Oh.
Could it be that you and your master were as inseparable as the light and the shadow that it casts?
Ah, possibly.
Can you think of any other significance?
No.
Now, your master's name was Ali Fahmy Bey. This title, Bey,
a prince,
was bought, was it not?
The title was awarded to the late prince's late father for his outstandingly generous gifts to charity.
Just so. And how long had you known Ali Fahmy Bey?
7 years.
But you didn't move in with him until after his father died and he had inherited his fortune some 3 years ago.
I became the prince's private secretary 3 years ago.
Your presence everywhere pursues me incessantly, torch of my life. I see your head encircled by a crown I have reserved for you in this beautiful country of my ancestors. Do you recognize that?
It is a letter the prince sent to the accused before the wedding. He was urging her to follow him to Egypt.
No news from you. Baba seriously ill, but there is hope for his recovery. Do you recognize that?
It is a telegram that I sent.
To the accused?
Yes.
Well, who is this Baba?
Baba. Baba was the name the prince and the accused used between themselves. His first name was Ali. She called him Ali Baba.
So this telegram is saying that the prince is seriously ill?
Yes.
And was he?
He was in bed for a few days.
So this again was to persuade the accused to follow him to Cairo?
Yes.
And in the end, he succeeded. And she travelled to Cairo.
In November.
And when she arrived, how did the prince treat her?
Oh, he was very kind and attentive.
Did he ask her to marry him?
Very often.
And yet still the accused hesitated. Why do you suppose that was? Do you think it possible that she had heard of Mademoiselle Bozzini, the prince's mistress, who left the prince because of his brutality?
No, Bozzini did not leave the prince. He left her.
But there had been other mistresses, had there not, in Paris and elsewhere?
Oh, the prince had many. Yes, there had been others.
And not only mistresses. Oh, come now, Mr. Anami, you were the prince's friend, his inseparable friend. And by all accounts, I put it to you, that Prince Fahmy, the late Ali Fahmy Bey, was a man of violent and eccentric sexual tastes.
No.
And that he was a practitioner of that abominable crime which takes its name from the cities of the plain.
No.
He was a sadist, was he not? A man who enjoyed the sufferings of women.
No.
Well, do you recall an incident in March of this year in Cairo where the prince rushed at his wife and struck her in the face, dislocating her jaw with the force of the blow because she has been out in the town alone?
Oh, yes.
Well, do you recall another incident? In February, on the prince's yacht at Luxor, where he locked his wife in her cabin for 3 days.
No.
Do you recall him firing a pistol over her head to frighten her?
No.
Did you know that the prince had sworn an oath on the Koran to kill his wife?
No.
When they came to London in July, did the prince threaten to throw his wife into the river?
I did not hear him say so.
Did you hear him say, I am taming her?
He said that if she would obey him, he would be very nice to her.
And I put it to you that after their marriage, the prince began to treat his wife with persistent cruelty.
Not cruelty. He was a bit unkind sometimes.
Did you know that in the civil contract of marriage it was stipulated that Madame Fahmy would have the right to divorce her husband.
Yes.
And that at the subsequent religious ceremony, the prince refused to allow this clause to remain and that he had it struck out.
Yes.
So this unfortunate woman could never divorce him, even if he took 3 more wives, as he was entitled to under the Mohammedan law.
Yes.
And you regard this as a bit unkind.
Yes, a bit.
When you and the prince first met the accused in May of last year, was she not a charming, cheerful, entertaining, and fascinating woman?
Yes.
And by July of this year, was she not sad and broken, miserable and wretched?
They were always quarrelling.
Thank you. No further questions.
You drink that now, it will do you good. Here, take your hat off for a bit. Would you like to? There, that wasn't too bad then, was it?
They are all so old.
Who are?
The men, the judge, the lawyer.
Mr. Justice Swift? Oh, he's not old, not really. Oh, you should see some of them. And he's a really nice gentleman. You couldn't have a nicer judge. Sir Edward, now, your counsel, he is old. But he's the best there is, you can believe me, really. You drink that tea now. Phlebitis, that's his trouble. That and varicose veins. He has a terrible time. I know them all, really. By sight.
Can you tell, right from the start, from the way they look at the prisoner?
Tell what, dear?
What they will decide.
Now, you know, we don't discuss the case, dear.
No. But you come here so often. And I, only once.
You're a caution for me. That's what you are.
Am I? A caution?
Mr. Churchill, we have heard evidence from the police that it was this pistol which killed Prince Fahmy. 7 wounds from 3 separate bullets, death being caused by a bullet in the temple. Now, it is described as an automatic pistol. Does that imply that as long as one keeps one's finger on the trigger, the gun will continue to fire?
No. It's an automatic pistol because it reloads automatically. The force of the explosion of each separate shot brings the next cartridge up into the firing position. But to fire that new cartridge requires a separate pull on the trigger.
So that for Madame Fahmy to fire 3 separate shots at her husband would have required 3 separate pressures on the trigger.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill.
A separate pressure on the trigger for each shot fired. A strong pressure?
No.
A slight pressure?
Yes.
Hand the pistol to the witness. A very slight pressure?
Yes.
Do that again. Why did you do that?
To see if it was loaded.
Was it?
No.
What would you have done if it had been loaded?
Unloaded it as quickly as possible.
And how would you do that?
Oh, I'd first slide back the breech, thus ejecting the cartridge, then release it.
The pistol would then be harmless?
Ah, no.
Always assuming it was started with a full magazine.
Yeah, if I'd started with a full magazine, I'd first have to remove the magazine and then eject the cartridge which is still in the chamber.
Now, Mr. Churchill, you've just said that in an automatic pistol, the force of each successive shot brings the next shot up into the firing position. Now, do you think a person inexperienced in firearms, a woman, for instance, would necessarily be aware of that?
She might well not know that.
Thank you. No further questions. Would you stay there in case you're needed?
Mr. Clark?
No re-examination, my lord. I should like to call Dr. Gordon, the final witness for the prosecution, my lord.
It shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is your full name Ernest Henry Gordon?
It is.
And were you called to the Savoy Hotel at approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of July the 10th?
I was.
And what did you find when you got to the hotel?
I found the prisoner in a corridor on the fourth floor.
This year.
I've only been out once. Not much of a bag. It was disappointing me.
Where did you go?
Norfolk. With Freddie.
Oh, yeah?
Did Madame Fahmy say anything to you?
This wretched leg of mine is giving me such trouble.
Oh, pity.
Dr. Gordon, I understand that you had attended the prisoner professionally on an earlier occasion.
That is so. I was first asked to visit Madame Fahmy on July the 4th. I then called in a specialist and arranged for her to enter a private nursing home on the morning of July the 10th for an operation.
So that the prisoner was due to enter a nursing home later that morning, the morning of the shooting?
Yes,
Will you
but
please
this
tell
is
the
not...
court exactly what operation the prisoner was to undergo?
An operation of a particularly painful and distressing nature.
With permission, my lord.
Yes, by all means.
And this operation was to take place in London?
Well, that was Madame Famy's original intention. However, when I saw her in the early hours of July 10th after the shooting, she said that her husband had refused to pay for the operation. She therefore made plans to return to Paris immediately.
Did you have any further conversation with the prisoner on that occasion?
She said that she and her husband had quarrelled bitterly the previous evening.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Dr. Gordon, when you first saw Madame Fahmy, did she say anything to you about her husband's behaviour towards her?
She said that her husband was very passionate.
Anything else?
She said that he made unusual demands of her.
Were these also unnatural demands?
Yes.
In other words, the prisoner alleged that her physical condition, the condition which necessitated a painful and distressing operation, had been caused by her husband's behaviour.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
That concludes the evidence for the prosecution, my lord.
You won't be opening much longer, will you, Marshal?
No, I should do it.
How far will you get with the evidence today, do you think?
Today? I don't want to call it a day. I want her fresh and rested. She looks half dead already.
But you'll be finished about 3. You can't ask Rigby to adjourn at 3.
And what about calling her sister? She's rather a stunner.
No. I have a much better idea. And so, as I indicated before, there are 3 possible verdicts: murder, manslaughter, and not guilty. Now, if you believe the evidence of the accused, you will believe that she acted in legitimate self-defense, and it will be your duty to say that she is not guilty. And now, my lord, listen. I should like to call the first witness for the defense, Dr. Morton.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is your name James Henry Morton?
It is.
And are you the governor of Holloway Prison?
I am.
When Madame Fahmy was admitted to Holloway Prison, did you see any marks on her?
There were 3 severe abrasions on the back of her neck.
On the back of her neck? Would those marks be consistent with her throat having been seized by a man's left hand, the man's thumb, pressing against her windpipe?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. Will you stay there?
No questions, my lord.
Well, in that case, my lord, owing to the lateness of the hour, and since it is my intention to call the prisoner next, perhaps this would be a convenient moment to adjourn until tomorrow.
Very well.
I am much obliged, my lord.
Said she had an excellent night.
Delighted to hear it. Wish I could say the same.
Can't you take something to make you sleep?
I can, I do. It makes not the slightest difference.
Sir Edward? I have just seen Mr. Clark. He tells me that he intends to cross-examine our client about about her life in Paris.
I knew you'd gone too far with Ernani.
We have nothing to hide.
She was just a tart.
Is that how you see her?
There were an awful lot of men.
She didn't kill an awful lot of men. What happened to the husband, Laurent?
She divorced him for desertion, Sir Edward, in the year following their marriage.
Ah. She was abandoned with her little child, alone, penniless, in Paris.
Monsieur Laurent went to live in Japan. Our client refused to accompany him. He nevertheless paid her a most generous allowance.
Oh.
The child was already quite old when she married Laurent, you know.
Rigby won't like that.
Oh, dear.
He's terribly prim. Mr. Justice Rigby Swift is also very susceptible to feminine charm.
Rigby. Rigby.
It seems that Sir Edward Marshall Hall has said that the prisoner was an immoral woman. But he said it in such a way that he's given us all the impression that she was an innocent and most respectable woman. It's a difficult thing to do, but he's done it. Mr. Clark, I don't think any purpose would be served in questioning the prisoner regarding her relations with other men. However, regarding her relations with Prince Fahmy, you may ask her any questions you like.
As your lordship pleases.
Much obliged.
The jury may be recalled.
Good old Rigby. Always the gentleman. He's quite right, of course. Those two women would hang her just for being what she is. They all would. I can't imagine why any decent woman would want to come to this sort of trial. Would you let your wife come? Never.
Sir Edward?
I now call Marguerite Fahmy.
Sir Edward, Madame Fahmy is of the Mohammedan religion. Should she not be sworn on the Quran?
Merci. Je préfère la Bible.
Very well.
I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I will give
that the evidence that I will give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Is your full name Marguerite Fahmy?
Yes,
And your age is?
32.
And did you in 1919 marry Monsieur Charles-Henri Laurent?
Yes,
And did you subsequently divorce him the following year for desertion?
yes.
Now, I want you to tell the court about your relationship with Prince Fahmy. You met him where?
In Deauville,
And when was that?
July last year. I had seen him before, but we had never spoken. He was so tall, so strong. In Deauville, he took a whole floor of the hotel. Loved me straight away. He had 2 secretaries. And I loved him. Un valet. He was like a mistral, a great wind from the south, so strong. When he said he must go back to Cairo, I said I would follow to be with him. It was une folie. I understood that. But Ali couldn't live without me, he said. When I arrived by boat at Cairo, there were 3 Rolls-Royces waiting. Ali said, "Which one you choose?" His house was a palace, enormous. Everything was of gold. He had his own yacht, servants. I agreed to become Mohammedan. They gave me a new name, Munira, the shining one. I married him, and everything changed at once. At first, I thought that I must have changed. But when he talked to me, it was as if he was talking to someone else. To one of the servants, perhaps, to an animal. He was cold, angry. Of great happiness. I knew then I was not... When we went to Luxor the first time, before we were married, He gave wonderful reception parties on the yacht. Lord Carnarvon came and so many others. They were expeditions, the valet of the king's. But when we were married, as soon as we were married, that all stopped. No more parties. He wouldn't even let me leave the yacht. He went, often, but always he left those 6 black monsters to watch me, to see I did not leave the boat. He called them servants, but they were slaves. I was a prisoner. My sister had gone back to Paris. My maid and I were the only women. He started to be cruel. He locked me in my cabin. Il m'a terrifiée.
But why didn't you run away? Leave your husband. You had your own flat in Paris.
He would have sent in Annie to fetch me.
But you had friends who would have protected you.
I didn't want them to know how it was for me. I always hoped things would get better. He used to say that he was sorry, that he loved me, that he would be kind.
But things didn't get better.
No. But I always hoped.
On July the 4th, you and your husband came to London. Why was that?
To see my daughter. She was at school near London.
And in London, what was your husband's behavior?
Toujours pareil.
The same. Now, let's come to the events of July the 9th. Had you and your husband quarreled during that day?
He saw that my cases had been packed. I had decided to go back to Paris the next day.
And what did your husband say?
He said, "You will see."
What did he mean by that?
He meant that he would undertake something against me.
And were you frightened by that threat?
He was so strong.
What did you do?
I took the pistol that Ali had given me and I tried to empty it. I knew it was loaded because Ali had told me. I had seen him empty his own pistol and I tried to do the same.
Why did you do that?
I wanted to frighten Ali. I didn't want to hurt him. I never wanted to hurt him.
Give the pistol to
But
the
I
witness.
thought if he saw I had the pistol in my hand, he would leave me alone.
Take the pistol in your hand, Madame Fahmy. It's quite harmless now. Show me what you tried to do. No, look. Show the jury what you tried to do. And did you succeed in emptying it?
No, it went off.
The gun fired?
Yes.
Was anyone hurt?
Oh, no, I was in front of the window.
Were you frightened?
Not after it had fired. I thought it was safe then.
Did your husband threaten you again?
At supper, he took a bottle in his hand. He said he would abîmer, disfigure my face, and then I could go to the devil. There was such a storm that night. Oh, such a noise. I hate thunder. I was too frightened to go to bed. Then Ali came into my room. I said, "Could I have some money for my journey tomorrow?" He said, "Come into my room, I have some money there." But when I went into his room, he said, "You must earn it."
What did he mean by that?
The thing he liked to do.
Go on.
I said no. He caught my arm and he twisted it. I said, "No, please, Ali! No, Ali!" He said, "No!" I was fighting him to get away. I ran away out into the corridor and then into my room. Always he came after me. "I want my revenge," he said. I took the pistol. He said, "I will say that you threatened me." I ran away again out into the corridor. Always he came after me. He grabbed my neck here. I fought myself away. He took 2 steps back. He crouched down like an animal. He said, "I am going to kill you." I lifted my arm. I pointed the pistol. I pulled the trigger. There was a shot. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't understand. He was lying on the ground. There was blood on his neck. He wouldn't move. I took his hand. I said, "Mon amour, speak to me. Oh, please, speak to me."
Oh, don't take on so, it's over. The worst part's over, Fanny. Don't.
When will he come?
Well, I've sent the message, but it's not usual, you see, not till you've finished your evidence. Thank goodness you've come, sir. I don't think we'd have got her back into court if you hadn't.
Ma chère madame, you were magnificent.
Tellement courageuse.
Oh, vous êtes venu.
Well, of course I came. You asked to see me. Now, what can I do for you?
You have done so much already for me, Sir Edward. But there is something I must know. The verdict. When the court
Sure,
has
madame,
decided...
let us not worry about the verdict. We must trust in
I am
God.
not worried about the verdict, Sir Edward. I trust in you. But I must know if the verdict will be valid only in England, or will it also be valid in France and in Egypt?
Oh, I imagine. Palmer.
I'm not sure, Sir Edward, but of course I can find out.
There, you've rumbled Mr. Palmer, and there aren't many people who can do that, I can assure you. And now, madame, if you will excuse me.
Of course, Sir Edward. I am so grateful to you for coming. And Monsieur Palmer, you will let me know.
Yes, of course, by all means. Goodbye.
Am I correct when I say that your father was by trade a cab driver?
Mr. Clark, does it matter whether he was a cab driver or a millionaire? I don't want a long inquiry into this lady's ancestry.
As your lordship pleases. You've lived in Paris all your life, I believe.
Yes.
And your daughter was born there?
Yes.
When you were age 17?
Yes.
You have friends of wealth and influence in Paris?
Yes.
So that all in all, it would be fair to describe you as a woman who has had experience of life.
Yes.
Madame Fahmy, how old was Monsieur Laurent when you married him?
22.
He was a very wealthy young man, was he not?
Yes.
And how old was Prince Fahmy when you married him?
22.
You were very ambitious to become his wife, were you not?
Not ambitious. I loved him. When I went to Egypt, I thought I was going as his maîtresse.
And yet you did agree to the cancellation of the clause in the contract permitting you to divorce him. Oh, come now, Madame Fahmy, were you not determined to marry him at any cost?
I hoped that he would be kind.
But when he was not kind, when he started to make unnatural and degrading demands on you, you started to hate him.
No. I hated what he did. I never hated him.
So when he maltreated you, you made no protest, offered no resistance.
I hit him. Once. But he hurt me so much, I never tried again. He was so strong.
Thank you. No more questions.
Will you return to the dock now, Madame Fahmy?
My lord, members of the jury, within a month of her marriage, this unfortunate woman was so sure that she had cause to fear death at her husband's hands that she made this solemn statement and sent it to her lawyers in Cairo. I, Marguerite Alibert, of full age and sound mind, formally accuse, in the event of my death, violent or otherwise, Ali Fahmy Bey of having contributed to my disappearance. She had made one great mistake. Possibly the greatest mistake that any Western woman can make. She had married an Oriental. The curse of this case is the atmosphere, the Eastern atmosphere, the Eastern feeling that a woman is no more than a possession to be kept by her husband in a harem, to be used at his will. Humiliation, imprisonment, degrading usage, and revolting cruelty. Such was the treatment accorded to his wife by Ali Fahmy Bey, one of the wealthiest and most cultured men in Egypt. Imagine then the effect on the nerves of this unfortunate woman on the night of the monstrous thunderstorm in London on July the 9th. Her husband had repeatedly threatened to kill or disfigure her. She is alone, desperate, in pain. He makes his revolting suggestion. He lays violent hands upon her. She runs away, runs for her life. She sees the pistol, which she believes to be harmless. Here is something which will protect her. She snatches it up. Her husband seizes her by the throat, but somehow she manages to fight free. He crouches, about to spring, like an animal, like an Oriental. He's going to kill her. Of this she has no doubt. She raises the pistol, she fires. She sees her husband lying on the floor. She does not understand. What has happened? She falls to her knees beside him. My love, speak to me. Now, was this deliberate, willful murder, or was it a shot fired by a desperate woman from a pistol which she believed to be harmless when she thought her life was in danger, members of the jury? I do not ask you for a verdict. I demand a verdict at your hands. I ask you to let this woman go. Let this Western woman go back into the light of God's great Western sun.
Silence in court. Silence in court.
It is easy to speak evil of a dead man. Members of the jury, I hold no brief for Prince Fahmy. I appear for the Crown, and I invite you to consider certain facts. It is not disputed that the prisoner killed her husband by firing 3 separate shots from her pistol. Now, the prisoner has stated that when the pistol fired accidentally out of the window, she had been trying to empty it in order to threaten her husband with it. That statement suggests that she anticipated, at the very least, a serious quarrel with her husband that evening. But, members of the jury, if she had seriously believed that he intended to kill her, would she have gone out to the theatre with him, had supper with him, and then retired to their suite alone with him? Unlike my learned friend, I shall not demand a verdict of you. I only ask that you return a true verdict according to the evidence.
Look at the jury. Worried to death.
Can't blame them.
Oh, no. He's been talking for hours and hasn't expressed an opinion yet.
There is then the possibility of a verdict of manslaughter on the grounds of extreme provocation. You must ask yourselves whether any of Prince Fahmy's actions were such as to destroy the self-control of an ordinary, reasonable person. The suggestion that he seized her by the throat is another matter. Now, if you believe that he actually seized her by the throat, I would not think it right for you to return a verdict of manslaughter. It is, of course, a terrible thing to say, that anyone is justified in taking the life of another person. In the eyes of the law, you are only justified if you have reason to believe that your own life is in danger and that your only means of escaping from your aggressor is by killing him. You will now retire.
What is the time?
3:30.
An hour? How long do they usually take?
There's no usually, dear. They can take days. Now, you mustn't get excited. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I meant, don't think about it. Oh.
The jury's coming back.
That's quick.
Chapeau.
Oh. Here, it's for you.
What is it? Une aromatique?
It's white heather. Good luck.
Good luck? Oh, bonne chance.
We grabbed in pots.
In the prison?
Yes.
Do you give some to everyone?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached the verdict on which you are all agreed?
We have.
On this indictment for murder, how say you? Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
On this indictment for manslaughter, how say you? Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
And this is the verdict of you all?
It is.
Clear the court. Let her go.
Get his wig and gown off, Mr. Oliver. The white one first, Sir Edward.
My congratulations to you, Marshal.
A triumph, Sir Edward. I wouldn't have believed it possible.
A very fine result, if you'll allow me to say so, sir.
I think it must be regarded as your most remarkable achievement ever.
Out into God's great western sun.
Nice win, Marshal.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
She has another long case to go through.
What do you mean?
The answer to our client's question, Sir Edward, whether the judgment is valid in Egypt.
Well?
She will have to fight the case through the Egyptian courts.
Fight again for her good name.
I don't think her good name is worrying her.
Palmer.
If the verdict is accepted in Egypt, she will get 1/6 of Fahmy's estate. Forever.
Do you suppose she knew?
Of course she knew. That's why she asked.
£8,000 a year.
In a normal year. The French are so practical.
Much speculation followed the verdict as to whether Madame Fahmy would inherit something of her husband's vast fortune, especially as it was now revealed she was expecting a baby. But what happened afterwards to Madame Fahmy and her baby is not really known, though years later, as a very rich widow, she apparently once played checkers with Noel Coward.